Hi, I'm David with EV World News. We talk about electric vehicles, green energy, and the stock markets. And I'm here today with our resident engineer, Mike Herzog. How's it going, Mike?
I'm doing great, David. It's that little bit of a cough in the intro goes, I have a barking dog. There's a plumber here. There's going to be a guest. Everything. It's just flying by the seat of our pants.
We have an AWOL guest, and I'm really disappointed in that. And it's funny because Jeremy McCool was supposed to be on here from HEVO, and he's a really big proponent of wireless charging. And I had kind of blown off this technology. Supposedly there's a highway being paved down in Florida that's going to allow wireless charging. I'm thinking about this. Well, how do you connect? How does that payment system going to work? There's a whole lot of things like that. But I've had a chat with Jeremy at length. And so when I think of charging, I think of traditional charging like you do at home or a supercharger or whatever. Then I also think it's like, well, we've talked about NIO. NIO is a Chinese car manufacturer that's on the New York Stock Exchange that has battery swap technology. And this is kind of wild to think about because they have several thousand locations that auto swap your car battery. And it's kind of like a car wash. You drive in, swap your battery, you drive on out with a charged battery. And Jeremy's company is like, no, guys, hold on. Let's look at wireless charging. And this seems like I love wireless charging for my cell phones. I have multiple wireless chargers.
And 100% agree. I mean, it is easy. You don't have to worry about, fiddling the little connector in there. I mean, it's a nice complementary technology for that, for sure.
Yeah. So, my thing is, okay, it's a cool idea, but right now, Tesla spent all this money, has these supercharging network. Well, here's the weird thing. And he was telling me Tesla is already equipping some of their vehicles for wireless charging. Mm-hmm. And they're really the only ones doing it so far. And what's going on here is it's not in the cars you're buying for your own use. It's their autonomous vehicles that they're developing, like for robo-taxi, things like that. So what they're doing is instead of, you need a robot arm or something to open up the hatch on the charging mm-hmm. port, instead it's having you just pull over a parking space and the car charges wirelessly
by itself.
Yeah, and this makes a lot of sense for autonomous vehicles. And we talk a lot about the transition from gas cars to EVs and all that. Mm-hmm. But in reality, I see other people I've had discussions with, they're already prepping for the autonomous future. And this guy's one of them. And I've had other discussions with people about autonomous truck stops for autonomous trucking. And that's not even a thing, right? You don't hear anybody talking about autonomous trucking. Although I was somebody I was coaching tennis for a few years ago, he was trying to decide, and this sounds terrible, right? A kid got his pilot's license when he was in high school. Mm-hmm. Okay. He's in medical school now, and he flight instructs in medical school. And he wasn't sure if he wanted to be a pilot or a doctor. Okay. Not many people have those choices, right? Yeah. Right. And his feeling was that pilots would be replaced by AI.
Really?
Okay. But I see it the other way around. I see doctors being replaced by AI.
I think there's a lot of, when you look at, just the kind of the medical field and their practice and everything like that, it's formulaic and you're going against medical records and everything like that. But yeah, it's hard to get past. I think it was Detroit. They did, gosh, I bet it's been 7-8 years ago now. They did like a 2-block stretch of like the, pie in the sky world of the future. Here's a 2-block stretch of street that you drive down, and while you drive it, your vehicle charges. Mm-hmm. Which, implementing that across interstates and highway, that sounds like a lot. I mean, that's holy cow. I'm not going to say impossible. I mean, things happen, and if the price is right and the payout's right, it makes sense. But this idea of parking lots and parking spaces and having that all in there, it eliminates a lot of your challenges with plugging in and doing everything like that. It's not as big of a target for copper thieves.
That was one of his big points.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those. It's all buried. It's not a target. It's convenient. I think there's a lot of logistics, but it's on the same hand. I mean, you can hook your phone up to the public Wi-Fi. I mean, there can just be pull up to the parking spot, send your signal. Do you want to charge? Yes. Okay. Tie it back to my account as we go through.
I watched this horrible video of where in India they put asphalt down for a new stretch of road, and the people that lived along the road were all out there right after they got done digging up the asphalt and to take it and use it at home.
At home,
I don't know what.
Hot.
Yeah, they were like scraping up. You saw children out there, everything. They're all scraping up the asphalt so they could take it and repurpose it. And I was sitting there thinking, well, there goes that wireless charging idea of having it right below the asphalt, right? Yeah. But it was the funniest thing. I'd never dream of somebody thinking they can.
It's the kind of the automated approach where it's not the same because it's still very much wired, but buses where they have fleet charging, a lot of it's pantograph. So it's similar. It's pull up, but then it just drops a metal connector on the top of the bus. So it's not locking in, it's not secure, it's not anything like that, but it's the way the buses can park and move, and everything. Like, it's just a very convenient. You have a lot of room for error. Like, you can kind of just pull in and it drops in on top and charges you that way.
I still think in the large commercial vehicles, I still think battery swapping is going to be the go-to strategy. It just makes the most sense long term, even though nobody's doing it in the US yet. And I see them starting to implement it in China. It's like, they're the leaders. They're the leaders in automotive tech, really.
Yeah.
And we might invent it here, but they're the first to put it into commercial operation, right? Yeah. And but this wireless thing has kind of got me intrigued because I think for general cars, so I think about this. So one of the big challenges is, how do you get in a big city where you live in a place where you don't own a parking space? How do you accommodate that, right? And you're along the street, and you might be parking 2 or 3 blocks from your house, right?
Yep.
So if the utility company, not a private company, if the utility company owned all those spaces and had wireless charging implemented, so you could be billed at household, energy.
Retail rate.
Yeah, retail rates, not, triple or quadruple rates. This makes a lot of sense, right? And
I think it really does. And it's you look at so much with EVs, like the parallel to cell phones, because like that is one of the first ones, like daily use. I have this device, it has a battery, it is critical to my life. I need to ensure that it has a certain level of charge. It's a very interesting forebearer to EV charging, what it looks like. And so I always ask people, like, what kind of cell phone charger are you? Is it you go down to fumes and find a charger where you can? Is it every charger I see, I plug it in, I plug it in every night, that kind of thing? It's kind of telling of, well, what kind of EV charger might you be? Are you going down to fumes? Are you an everyday charger? What does this look like in your world? And
and that idea,
wireless is in cell phones, like, it's going to get there in EVs. It's just convenient.
Yeah, well, I look at it in the cell phones. It's like, I don't need an Android charger. I don't need an iPhone charger. I just set it on the charging stand.
I don't need the old lightning connector or USB B or C or figure out. It's just works.
Apple keeps changing. I mean, Apple's had at least 3 different charging standards in the last 10 years.
For me, I don't know if that's incompetence or brilliance. I mean, I think it's maybe a little bit of the latter. Like, well, let's change how you have to plug it in and make all of our old technology very obsolete. So you have to keep buying new.
Our in-house counsel in the nuclear business, he was part of that lawsuit against Apple for the planned obsolescence.
Oh, the plan, like it's
obsolete every 2 years.
Wow, it's really convenient. This just went out of warranty. It just fell apart.
Right. Yeah.
Kind of one of those old ones.
Yeah, it self-destructs. And, and I think that's where a lot of people get their ideas about EVs being disposable.
Yeah.
and they get it from cell phones, and a lot of that was Apple being a bad actor. Yet, I don't think they lost any market share over it.
I don't think they lost any market share of that at all.
People love Apple.
Even though it's like, what an amazing thing. Just on purpose. Quick connect between the ground and vehicle. Yeah, and that's kind of like that pantograph where it's the idea. So like if you think about where you're at, if you have bus stops and buses going by, where even just that minute or two of loading or unloading, like the bus pulls up, charges for a couple minutes while that's happening, then the thing comes up, the bus driver doesn't have to get out, you don't need a person connecting it, anything like that. So it's along the same lines. That is his point, the power transfer for wireless. It's still inefficient. It's less efficient than a wire, I should say.
Yeah.
A physical connection.
Yeah. So Bobby, our guest is AWOL, and I was just saying that he and I had a prior, maybe about 45-minute conversation, and he gave me good reasoning why this could be a big thing. But he said, like, at your house, you might just have a wireless charging pad that would go down in your garage. And, on the one hand, then for people who rent, they could have one of those and then they could roll it back up. I'd assume there's probably some need for, electrician all the same, right?
All the same. And it's, level 1 charging, probably not. I mean, I think that would be okay. And maybe the sweet spot for this is between level 1 and level 2 where you avoid it. But that is an interesting, if you didn't have to hardwire anything. And you could just plug it into the wall and roll it out and go from there. Yeah, the questions I would have on some of this is, space requirements, power draw. So like David, what you were talking about, so it's dense urban population, you got a lineup of 10 parking meters. Can you do this all? Like, do you have to set 10 specific things, and the person better be a pretty good parker, to like get in that
right
spot just park. Sometimes, even with your cell phone, you set it down. If it's not quite right, like it doesn't quite pick up the charge. So, could it be somebody could park like a jackass and still get a charge out of it? I don't know.
I think they're going to have to, put the white lines that delineate the spaces. Here's kind of my thought, and I go back to this all the time. Like, I think the solution for apartment complexes and other things is level 1 charging, right? And I think it'd be the same thing for the street parking. I don't think you need to have level 2 charging, where you're all of a sudden, if everybody's level 2 charging at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, that, you have that big power draw. Yeah. Well, see, this is the thing, Owen, is his argument was that autonomous vehicles already have this installed. So other than autonomous Teslas, I'm not aware of any other vehicles having wireless charging capabilities hooked up. And so he said, this is where it's starting. So he has to get the car manufacturers to agree to play along with us. So I think that's probably the bigger question. I think that it's got real teeth.
I think so. I mean, at first I think it's going to be offered as a feature, and somebody is going to figure it out and have their own proprietary, you think Tesla right off, here's the Tesla wireless charging unit that comes with your vehicle, and it is a feature, it is a perk, this is what we have, and then the market's going to catch up when they see it.
But it's going to be fairly standard, right? It's not going to be like the difference between CCS and NACS. Right?
Yeah, there's not different little plugs and tines and different things like that. You can just park on top of it. You'll be okay. And if your cell phone's in your pocket, maybe it'll charge too.
There you go.
If your kid has braces, they'll pick up AM radio when they're standing.
Maybe your pacemaker battery will recharge. Yeah.
You got your tinfoil hat ready for all that electromagnetic spectrum coming at you.
Yeah, that'll be the next thing, right? Because you see all the things about how 5G is killing us, and there's documented data that if you live beside power lines. Now I have some power lines a couple houses over where I'm at, but they're not,
those aren't bad, but it's the same concept. Like, if people are worried about that, like, it's actually a lot of power transfer. And I think those are, for that crowd, that's going to be something that's going to be a challenge for sure.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If it was level 1 as opposed to
level 1, it's just be a gentle hum in your head.
Yeah.
We're not really shake you up.
Right. Anyways, let's I want to talk about your current Audi service experience.
Oh yeah, it's my complaint now that I've been an EV driver. So it's just issue with the car. It's all under warranty still, everything like that. I've been waiting on a part for a couple of weeks, but there's a service recall, and unfortunately they only have one tech who really knows what to do inside and out with everything like that. So it's been a big line, big wait, and everything like that. If you are an EV owner, I mean, it's very, so far, my knock on wood, my maintenance experience has mostly been software updates. I mean, it's like your computer, your phone, whatever it is. Like, yeah, we just need to go update the software when we go in.
But Audi makes you actually take the car in for software updates.
Yes, you have to go in. And I sat there and talked to their tech for a long time. He's like, yeah, it's kind of like sitting there like with a computer, like in the old days, like, all right, this process number 1 is done. Would you like to start process number 2? Like, okay. No, but my complaint with it is I've had a loaner for 2 weeks and I have to fill the damn thing up with gas, which is just something I'm not used to doing. And I know that sounds petty and kind of silly, but I think a lot of people do is you can. Well, I'd be curious to know who your local utility is, because that's 20 kW is a big number in there. But anyway, I've been driving an EV for a year and I'm already spoiled about the idea of needing to go out of my way and fill it up with gas and make a special trip, or pull in the night before with, low, run it out and say, oh, I'm fine, it'll be charged by the morning. And now it's crap. Now I need to go find a gas station on the way to taking the kids to school, which I hadn't thought about in a long time.
One of my friends and I, we went to Arizona for a tennis tournament, and he has a mini fleet of Teslas at home. Okay, so he doesn't drive gas cars, but he borrowed a relative's Lexus while we were in Arizona, which was a gas vehicle. We went somewhere to eat. I was like, dude, you didn't turn the engine off. It's like, oh, I forgot. That's just not something you take for granted. It's like, what do you mean I got to turn the engine on? Off. Yeah. So
just one of those basic things you did for your entire life, or most of your life, and now it's I don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah, it's
20 relative. Everything's always relative. 20 kW is a lot. Like your house probably peaks at 10 to 15 kW, and that's with your AC running, your dryer running, stereo on, TVs on, lights, and everything like that. So it's it's house and a half when everything comes down to it. So it's it's interesting what those numbers actually look like, because we've been kind of not spoiled but shook up by all the data centers and their gigantic numbers they're talking about. So everything's kind of out of scale right now in the industry.
Well, think about this. If you had all of this, and this is what I'm talking about, is basically 1.25 kilowatts, right?
Mm-hmm.
So because it's just basically 110 going in. And what if everybody was set up as V to G as well? And
I wasn't thinking electric heat. There you go. Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but you could stabilize whole neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Between cars. I mean, there's all kinds of things. What was interesting yesterday, our guest did the first actual workable V2G setup in the United Kingdom.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So I thought that was pretty interesting yesterday. The guy's name was Dunstan Power. Yeah, but he's a company called Versanetic, and they make like internal components. They're an engineering firm.
Okay.
And they make internal components and software for charging setups. And he was talking about how they installed 120 charging stations for the 2012 Olympics in London.
Wow.
So 13 years ago.
Well, I bet, you know what? I bet that was tied to, modernization. Look at us. We're on the cutting edge. But holy cow, that's
13 years ago.
were there 100 EVs in the country
Yeah,
at that
so
time?
they had a whole fleet of, I think it was MGs and
Oh, okay.
something else. They were all small EVs, and Bill was reminding him of some EV I'd never heard of that was really tiny that they had over there, but they were ferrying dignitaries back and forth
Gotcha.
in these EVs, and they needed the charging stations. And being in 2012, the range in those EVs wasn't very far. We might be talking 60, 70 miles, right? That might be pushing it even.
Charging.
Yeah, so they were charging for a while to fill those up. Yeah, technology's really changed a lot. But that's also where a lot of people they have their ideas about, oh, the tech sucked in 2010 to 2012. People don't know that it's changed, right?
Well, it's amazing when you look at the timeline. It was a purposeful thing. The government and labs invested in battery technology, and between 2010 and 2015, like, it got better. This wasn't just a oh yeah, this and everything. Like, yeah, there was real knocks against EVs 15 years ago, like real challenges, real issues, but they
Things hadn't
invested
been
and did
figured out.
research, and it's different. Things are different than what they were 10 or 15 years ago in a really good way. Really good.
Yeah,
way.
I'm just saying that this whole idea with the wireless charging, I mean, you really could just not even think about it.
Mhm.
You could have a setting on your car that it's going to always be charged to at least 60% or 80% or something like that. And but when you're only adding 4 miles of range an hour on level 1 charging, it's gonna, run you up to 80% probably, and stop there, right?
What's the wireless like at level 1? Like you're saying, like that is the one, like just all the time. Just trickle charge that thing all the time, kind of when you're plugged in and come up for the urban applications. Because the other thing that parallels really well is these areas, urban places where you have dense multifamily residential, those also tend to be the places where people aren't putting a lot of daily miles on. They're not commuting from the suburb into the city or whatever it is. It's in city driving. So on a day-to-day basis, you're not accumulating a lot of battery loss that you're going to have to recoup overnight. So it actually does end up being like fairly sustainable on level 1 charging.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about EV charging in Southeast Asia.
I don't know if I've ever shared my screen on here before. Let me see if I know how to do that.
There's a big button at the bottom that has a picture of a monitor with a plus.
I got it. All right, can you see that?
Hold on, let me add it to stage. There we go. Now we see it.
Okay, so I'm actually going to be heading over to Malaysia here in October to do some EV integration support for their utility and kind of do some planning and modeling and what they want to do and teaching a class over there on it. So as a result, I've been putting together a lot of just data on what it looks like over there. So here's the international outlook, very specific and where we're seeing, and this is what we've been talking about for a long time. You see China down here in red, Europe, India is becoming a huge player in that space.
Now, when we're talking electric vehicles here, this includes 2-wheelers and 3-wheelers, right?
Oh yeah, we'll get to that in a second, because starting to study electric vehicles in Southeast Asia, it turns out not necessarily the same thing we normally think of stateside with personal vehicles. Really specific in this area, steady outlook we're going to see. Unfortunately, this data set includes India and Japan, but country by country, and this is where I think it's really cool, because Thailand has done an incredible internal program to promote EVs. So you can see kind of that's the upper right graph. What they did in 2021, 2022, and 2023, how it just skyrocketed those years. Malaysia is also starting to really take off, but they have not done a lot. So you can kind of see just the scope and scale of it. Then you see Vietnam, and it's like, holy cow! Like they have steadily taken off. Their annual sales are in the hundreds of thousands, not in the tens of thousands, and everything like that. But to your point, it's almost all 2- and 3-wheel vehicles. It's not personal vehicles. This is what I thought was kind of cool. So, talking about a little bit of the EV history here. This is going to be impossible to read on the screen, but these giant orangey yellow slices of pie are the EV sales share for 2- and 3-wheel vehicles, and then kind of the blue one is for cars, and then there's trucks, vans, buses, everything else in there too. But really, just in the past 4 to 5 years, probably 2 to 3 years, is when we've seen personal vehicles, cars, 4-wheel vehicles take over 2- and 3-wheel vehicle sales. So even going back to 2015, when we talk about EVs, like my mindset is always, it's a car. It's the car I drive to and from work every day, pick the kids up, everything like that. But reality is it's been scooters.
When you look back at 2000, when you look back at 2015, so there probably wasn't a whole lot of electric vehicle cars on the road then, like you're showing. But this could be e-bikes, scooters, all kinds of things.
Yeah, something we really don't get here is 3-wheel vehicles, but that's very big in that part of the world. But this is the last one I'll show you, then I'll stop sharing. But I thought it was kind of interesting because it's same color scheme. The orange is 2- and 3-wheel vehicles. The blue is cars. And then what's interesting when you look at Korea, the really light blue is vans, electric van sales. So that's actually made a significant dent in their overall national sales, but just very different across the region. So you can look at China, where pretty dang close. And really, the cars just took over for the 2- and 3-wheel. Like I said, Vietnam is almost all e-bikes and 3-wheel vehicles. Same with Indonesia. It's this guy here, the U.S., you can tell it's all cars. Korea got some vans, whereas Thailand is the opposite, where they've really seen sales in cars and not 2- and 3-wheel vehicles. Same with Malaysia, where they've seen it in there. But it was a good perspective change for me, at least, because I always focus on just cars, but the reality is where the population is growing the fastest. It's all cars, or I should say it's all 2- and 3-wheel vehicles where they're seeing, which it's like charging your cordless drill, or your battery pack. Like those things really do not take a lot of power, and to the point of not having to be very concerned about it.
Yeah, there is a Uber-like service in Africa, and I forget the name of it, but they're using both e-bikes and gas vehicles, but your ride is a motorcycle, and you hop on the back of the motorcycle.
I think they just call them riders, I think is what they are. They're riders out there. Yeah.
Yeah, I found that quite fascinating. It's like, man, that's a whole different perspective. It's like, I don't see that working out well in the US.
You don't, and it's not just you, it's you and somebody else hopping on the back of a motorcycle that's zipping down streets as they're going through.
Yeah, it's just really hard to fathom how different transportation is. I mean, the United States is the most 4-wheeled vehicle country on the planet.
Yeah.
And, we're really mobile. Bobby, it's true. There's a lot of emerging tech that just doesn't take off here, and the Chinese grab onto it and they figure out how to make it cheap, and they do what they will with it.
I mean, it was Department of Energy funding that got batteries to where they're at today. I mean, it was U.S. government funding that put it there.
Yeah, I'm really sad to see some of the things that got rolled back, with the current administration and all that. And it's like, you can say what you want about energy and all that, but you and I see what's really going on, right? We see what's going on with wind and solar and nuclear, and even nuclear to me is still more of a targeted use case.
Yeah.
Right. And obviously wind doesn't work everywhere. It works well here because it's windy. Right. And, it might not work. And so I don't know where it's not windy, but I'm just saying, it may not.
Windy and wide open spaces.
Yeah. Maybe wind energy doesn't work well in Colorado or, some states like that where it's mountainous. Right. But even still, you go through Wyoming, it's crazy windy. Driving down I-80, it's nuts how hard the wind blows up at altitude. So, it's, there's certainly use for it there. The only problem with capturing wind energy in Wyoming is who are you going to transmit it to?
It's got to go somewhere. Somebody has
to. Yeah. There's not really so much of a, consumer of the energy there.
Yeah. There's always I shouldn't say always, but people try to push and co-locate and push things there. But then it's, well, what do you do if the wind doesn't blow for those couple of days a year out there? But yeah, I've appreciated looking at a lot of some of these other perspectives. Because even, when we talk about Europe, they're different. It's still a car culture, in a lot of ways. And basically set up the same. It's 4-wheel vehicles. It's a lot of the same brands, everything like that. But just seeing what's going on in Asia and China in these spaces, and like just this show and the weekly articles about China just did this. They just invented this. They're not slowing down. They doubled down on this research investment. It's like, ooh, that's getting a little rough, a little tough to compete out there.
It is, and I see people that mock BYD and stuff like that, and it's like, look, other countries, they're going gangbusters. It's funny, BYD actually took a hit. Their sales are down in China of all places.
Wow.
But they're up, like they just passed Tesla in Europe.
Did they really?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah, so I mean, but 80% of their business is still China.
Yeah.
I mean, China is the biggest car market in the world.
Still the biggest market by far. Yeah.
Yeah, and what is it? Half of their car sales are EVs or something like that.
It might even be more than that at this point. And going up to 60 or 70% in the next year or two.
Yeah, it's just really wild to see. They're making the transition. So we're kind of seeing what's going to happen in the United States occur there. But, a lot of that Chinese stuff is heavily subsidized by the government. And so you're not getting a true market economy feel for some of these things. But anyways, we'll see where some of this goes. Well, folks, I'm sorry about our guest today not showing up. I'm sure he'll communicate with me. I'll book him again in another, in 2-3 weeks or something. Because I think it would have been really interesting to hear his perspective, because he's got a kind of a good story. He was an Army infantry officer that was guarding energy sites in Iraq and in Baghdad. And it's real interesting to see. He talks about how, people were stealing the power, how they had to guard, how he lost a few of his men,
oh wow,
in combat, but because insurgents were trying to attack the power.
Yeah, it's a high-profile target.
Yeah, and so there was that, and I mean, interesting guy, and like I said, he has a perspective on wireless charging that I hadn't really thought of, and he's got a good vision. But it's one of those things like you and I talk about. It's tough. Somebody's got to be able to influence car manufacturers. They got to be able to influence government. They got to make some of these things happen. But it is, you think about how much simpler it is. That's the way it goes. Thanks, Bobby. Always appreciated. Next week, Bill's going to be out of town. Bobby's going to be my co-host on Tuesday.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah. So anyways, folks, appreciate everybody watching. I'm really surprised by the amount of attendance we have with the fact that our guest, no showed, but it's always great. Always appreciate everybody chatting, and we'll be back. There's no show Friday. I'm out of town, so the next show will be Tuesday, and we'll see y'all then. Everybody have a great week.